A, meeting opening. A1, call to order. A2, adoption of the agenda. Are there any consent agenda items that a board member would like to have discussed as an action item? Hearing none, do I have a motion that the governing board adopt the meeting agenda?
I move that we adopt the meeting agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Oropesa. Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Mr. Navarez. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. B1, a call for executive session. I call for a motion that the governing board enter into executive session.
I move that we go into executive session.
Thank you, Mr. Oropesa. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. De Ocampo. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are now in executive session. Welcome, everyone. C, reconvene. C1, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now observe a 30-second moment of silence. Thank you. We'll move to D, presentation. D1, demographic and enrollment analysis. We would like to invite Mr. Gabriel Gamino.
Oh, it was up here. Sorry about that. President Conchas, governing board members, Superintendent Dr. Myers, it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Rick Brommer and Mr. Don Graves from Applied Economics. They will be presenting the results of our district's recent demographics and enrollment analysis, providing us insightful and valuable guidance for planning moving forward. Mr. Graves, Mr. Brommer, you have the floor.
Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Mayes, it's our pleasure to be here this evening to present the results of our demographic study. It's an update. I think we last served the study served the district, I'm sorry, about 5 years ago when we were going through the last set of changes to our attendance areas and our school configurations. And so one of the things that's nice about that is you get a longer view, you know, and you get to know the community even better than we already do. So it's nice to come back to some place where you've already been before, and hope you find this all interesting. So scope of work that we've been doing for the district, and most districts, really hasn't changed too much in a long time, but focuses on thorough analysis of all of the enrollment data that's available, total enrollment, the grade level distribution, and most importantly, the geographic distribution, driving it down to kind of almost the neighborhood level so we can understand what's going on in different parts of the district. And then, unfortunately, the name of the game is looking at what's going on in the charter schools and the other alternative providers, because we know that's having a huge impact on us. Then the demographic characteristics of the existing population. So it's a very well-established area. There's very little vacant land. There's really, you know, limited development potential. They're finding nooks and crannies, but for the most part, it's developed. And so the most important thing driving enrollment is the characteristics of the people who are already here. And so we're, you know, do a deep dive into how that's changed, you know, how it changed kind of pre and post recession and where we see that going in the future. Now, Don Graves with our office is our residential development expert. He does that part of the analysis, looks at where there's vacant land, which there's not a lot, but looks for the redevelopment projects. And interestingly, redevelopment projects and infill, those kinds of things, are actually harder for us to study and identify and project than some new big subdivision on the outskirts of town. That's relatively actually easier in some ways. So his work is very important. And it's not a lot, but where it's impactful, it's impactful. You know, it's not every school, it's this school. And then we do two sets of enrollment projections. One is a top-down kind of macroeconomic, how does your district fit in to the metropolitan area and to this particular part of the city of Phoenix? You know, sort of a top-down. And then our kind of claim to fame is also then looking at it bottom-up. And in order to do that, and I'm not sure if we created your grid system or if I inherited this, but it carved the district up into what amounts to quarter sections. So every square mile is divided into 4 pieces, with the exceptions of the areas, of course, along Grand Avenue and I-17, where we need to respect those. boundaries for our planning purposes. And so the cool thing about grids is that they don't change over time with school configurations or with boundaries or anything else. And I can tell you, going back, well, about 10 years, how many students you actually drew out of each one of these little squares by grade, and what school they went to by coming from that square. Because that's the other thing that we're dealing with now all the time, is the impact of open enrollment within the district too. It's not just in and out, it's I want to go to that school, which has a big impact on us too. So starting sort of, back at the beginning, if you will, this is total district enrollment, and what you're looking at in the blue bars is the 40th day head count number. So it's different than what you may have seen for like ADM, which is more of a financing concept. This is actually how many students were enrolled on the 40th day of each year. And so what happened was from 2000 through about 2006, the district gained about 1,300 students, about 9% enrollment, which was the last big push up. And then, of course, you all know what happened in 2006, 2007. And for you guys, it was kind of a double whammy between the Great Recession and SB 1070 and all the anti-immigration and all of that stuff that, that really hit the district hard. And so then in the space of just, a few years, district enrollment dropped by 1,700. So we're actually already below where we were in 2000. And then what happened was essentially it stabilized through about 2014 during the recovery. And then what happened after that is the charter schools came back to life. And they started not just occupying little storefronts, but building brand new custom-built facilities. So they took up their game at that very time. And so since 2014-15, the district is now down about 3,900 students. That's about 28% of enrollment. The decline has been fairly steady and fairly coincidental to the growth in the charter school enrollment numbers. And the last, we had the big drop in 2020 because of COVID and all of that. But if you look at the last 2 years after that now, we're almost stable. And if you look at the, as we will, the enrollment in the charter schools, they haven't changed in the last 2 years either. So they stop growing, you stop losing. The distribution of enrollment by grade level. So oftentimes this pattern tells us a little more than it does here, although you can see back in 2000, it was the younger group, the K2 group, that was the largest. And consistently, then there were fewer kids in the upper grades. And this is typical in an area where people are stable, but they're moving up and out. So as their kids get older, they're more likely to move outside of the district. And then what's happened now, and really since the charter schools took hold, see in 14-15, watch where that K2 line dives, is that they made their inroads by doing the preschool, by doing all day, by, hooking them in that K2 group. And so it started to drag that K2 group down, and guess what? The other two groups follow it. And that's exactly what's happening in these curves, to where right now they're almost on top of each other. So the distribution is very, very tight, top to bottom. I mentioned that we looked at, things obviously at below the district level. So enabled to do that, we get student data, just a stripped down directory information, where the student lives, school they attend, what grade they're in. And we can use that address information to convert into X and Y coordinates, so we can put dots on the map where all the kids live, both inside and outside the district. So you'll see there's orange dots, and there's orange dots all the way to about Anthem, believe it or not. I mean, so it's, and a lot of districts, but because you're along I-17, I think you actually have a bigger draw, kind of north than some other places. Plus that, your Alhambra Traditional Academy has been very, very popular with commuters right from the start. So I think that also helps. But in general, we use this information though, and we aggregate those dots, count how many are in each grid, so that we can make maps like this. And so this is for this year, and this actually shows the number of Alhambra students, K-8, I don't include preschool in these, but that actually come this year out of each one of those planning areas. And of course, you have the big band along Grand Avenue, which is all industrial, which has 0, which is fine, except that it does create a bit of a challenge for you when you have some people over here and some people way over here. So for transportation and boundaries and things like that, your distribution is a little challenging, and then compounded by the fact that you're intersected by a major highway and an interstate freeway. So it's a little bit of a challenging terrain, but you can see in the heart of the district, very, very high enrollment levels. Where in the elementary level, when you're getting, 1,100, 1,200 students per square mile, that's very, very high. That's about triple what we would get in most suburban areas. So your enrollment density, varies from very, very high to very, very low in a very short distance. As interesting or more than where they at now is we can go back, because we have had the opportunity to serve the district before, and look at what that enrollment was in 2017 in each of the grids compared to what it is now. And this is the change. And where it's blue, there's a loss, and there's supposed to be more red on this map where there were gains on enrollment, and there are a couple of really small ones. But as you can see, during the last 5-year period, the loss in enrollment has come not just from one neighborhood, not from one school, but district-wide. It's really, this shows the number of students, which is important, but we also then, I think the next one shows the same data by the percentage loss. So not the number loss, but the percent loss in students, which is a little bit clearer picture for us, because what we see is when you get to that north and east portion of the district, there's an awful lot more people that are choosing to go across to Alhambra and, perhaps even over into Madison. We know that our capture rates east of I-17, the students that we capture, is very low compared to the rest of the district. So that just creates this sort of, barrier, if you will, that's always been a challenge for the district. But in some of the places, you can see these percentage losses, are upwards of half, 30, 40% of the students in some of these grids. From the demographic standpoint, and I'm going to have to get something a little closer to my eyes here. We won't talk about all of these numbers by any means, but it's an interesting thing, because between 2010 and 2020, the district actually gained about 11,500 people, because 2010 was the low point in population. That's when everybody had left, and the vacancy rates were incredibly high. And so what happened then is those reoccupied during that period of time. And as they reoccupied, they changed. And it's not all or nothing, but you had relatively fewer families come in than you did older people and younger people during that reoccupancy period. And so you can see, particularly the group under 18 dropped from 28% of the population to 22.7, 23% of the population during that period. Now, because of the population increase, as you'll see later, that works out to almost exactly the same number of kids. It's about 8,500. So the number didn't really change all that much. The percentage dropped, but the number didn't change all that much. And it hasn't changed all that much going on into the last couple of years. And the only other thing I'll probably point out in here is you can see in that 10 to 20 period where I'm showing the change, and the total change in population, 11,547. The next line down, the under 5 lost 1,645 persons. So it was the youngest families that were the hardest hit by the recession. And that has now carried forward, and moved up the ladder, affecting us, here at the elementary level. And now, because we are working for Phoenix Union too, I know it's starting to hit them too. It's finally, progressed its way up the ladder, where it's not about competition or charter schools. It's just about there being fewer kids out there. And we're going to see how that works out. A lot of times the school-age population, or the population under 18, is directly tied to the 25 to 34 and 35 to 44 headed households, because they're the ones that are in childbearing ages. And so typically those will move hand in hand. And in your case, they kind of didn't. And most of that I attribute to the fact that we got a lot of 25 to 34-year-olds into the district who had no families. So it was, again, it was the same age group, but they didn't bring families with them. It was 2 or 3, singles or non-family households, as we like to say. So it really did change the lay of the land on us. I talked about the impact of birth rates, and I know this is a terribly complicated slide. I'm going to be reading off of the red line, which is the birth rate in the state of Arizona, which fell by 19% during the Great Recession to what at that time was the lowest level on record. It stabilized for about 4 years during what I keep calling the recovery. And then, much to everyone's surprise, instead of going back up, because that's what usually happens after a recession, people put off the decision and then, okay, and so you get a little baby bump on the other side of it. And it went the exact opposite. And, the studies suggest that young people were so impacted by the Great Recession and saw the impact that it had on their parents that it actually just spooked them into like, yeah, we'll do it, but we'll do it later. And the average age of first birth went up by 5 years in a space of 10. So this is a dramatic shift. And it's continued, although you'll see the last year or two, it's really started to flatten out. So the birth rate is appearing to find something of a bottom. But if you lag that 5 years, we're looking at declines in the total population, statewide, clear through 2027. So whatever your share is of that, know that there's less out there, to get. And I think the raw numbers are almost more fun because in 2006, in 2006, there were 102,700 babies born in the state of Arizona. And last year, there were 76,400. So the total number of births is down by like a third, even though the total population of the state has actually, of course, increased during that period of time. So it's happening nationwide, but much more so in Arizona. And again, I think it might have to do with our shifting demographics, post-immigration, post-everything. We talked about the charter schools in the area, at least, and we look at it in 2 ways, the ones that are in the district and the ones that are within a mile of the district, because we don't know which of your kids, if they have your kids or anyone's kids. We just have to kind of look at what the universe is and track it over time, more importantly, to see is it growing or is it shrinking. And so there's only the 6 schools in the district, about 3,200 students, but there's 12 more within a mile that have another 5,000 currently, so about 8,300 altogether in charter schools. And if you look at the next graph, you'll see what happened to enrollment, because in 2014-15, it was about 3,000. And between 14-15 and 19-20, or really 2021 in your case, it went up by 5,000 students. During the same period, you lost 3,900. So there was actually a net gain of 1,100 in there somewhere. But the fact of the matter is, this is a direct result of, this is exactly why your enrollment declined. Now, the heartening part of the chart is, of course, the last 3 lines, where the total enrollment in the charter schools hasn't increased, since 2020 either. And in fact, it's down a bit. And remember, I showed you that chart. What has your enrollment done in the last 2 years? It's stabilized. So the good news is that I think in your district that they've largely saturated the market. If they build another one, they're going to be taking students away from themselves. And so I'm hoping that we don't have that kind of impact continuing, but we have to know that it's possible. And now I'm worried about the private schools, because we had just kind of gotten the charter schools under control, and now with the vouchers, I know most of the vouchers are going to people who are already in private schools, et cetera. But it could have an impact, especially on the parochial schools, where they don't need 14,000 or 20,000 like the Phoenix Country Day School does. They can probably do it on 7 or 8 like the district gets. So I think that's something else just to unfortunately put back onto our radar of things we have to be paying attention to. And this is just a map that shows the distribution of where all those schools are. So the red dots are the charter schools, and the green dots are the private schools. And like I said, it's almost like they're afraid of the heart of your district. Are you there? They can't find land, one or the other, but notice that there's none in the heart of the district. They're all hanging around on the periphery. Unfortunately, it's close enough for, people to certainly get to. We're going to let Don talk for a minute about development.
Well, as Rick had mentioned, there's not a lot of housing development going on in the district. If we look at the last 10 years, the blue bars are single family and the orange bars are multifamily. And if we look clear over to the left-hand side, you see actually losing housing. Most of that was from redevelopment of GCU. But you're kind of going to continuously have this issue where somebody will come in and they'll buy 3 single-family houses and then build 10 attached units. So there's always kind of a gain and loss, and this happens in a lot of places, and some places, I've watched this happen. So what you'll have, normally it'll be more like we have on the right-hand side, where you've got some gains and losses, and it's usually going to be a net gain, but it's because it's all multifamily is where you're picking it up. So when you tear down those single-family houses, you'll replace them with 4 times the housing density, and you'll probably just keep seeing some of that. The residential potential, again, the blue is single-family and the orange is multifamily. The first bar is a little misleading. Well, in fact, it's a lot misleading. Where this is the infill housing. This is where it's not within any particular parcel that we've identified. This could be anywhere in the district. But if we look at the orange bar with the 1,200 potential units, about 2/3 of that is on the 19th Avenue corridor. Most of that will be, first place, probably not developed within the next decade. And when it is, it's going to be, oriented towards the light rail, so probably not going to be many kids out of that. But that's where a lot of that is going to be built. And then, the other bars, going out, not a lot of land. These are in parcels that we've identified, and in some cases, we've looked at certain areas that we think are ripe for redevelopment. We don't necessarily identify them because basically we don't want to have somebody looking at a map and saying, wait a minute, I shop at that place. But, the residential potential is just not very high. You're going to have a lot of redevelopment, so you'll lose some, you'll gain some. And you'll have a lot of, small things like up on 27th Avenue right now, there's a project that's under construction, but it's like 66 units, so it doesn't have a huge impact coming in. The land use map, we usually point out that, the red means active and the orange means, imminent development. You can't see much going on here because there's just not very many parcels. Like I said, there's a red dot on 27th Avenue right below Camelback, but that's 66 units. It's supposed to be affordable housing, which is a little different than what you will typically see in that corridor with GCU. But still, at 66 units is not going to have a big impact. Most of what you do have is going to be projects. We've identified different parcels along Indian School for the most part, and the single family is going to be kind of scattered around, but again, kind of between 35th and 40th, Camelback area down to Indian School, some of that area, but it's going to be pretty small parcels that won't have a lot of yield. And it's going to be coming in over time, very slowly. So not a lot of growth, and it's not very fast. So the impact's going to be pretty muted.
And of course, other than the one project he was talking about, which is affordable housing, the history of redevelopment in downtown Phoenix is that you tear down an affordable unit and you build one that's not. And so you end up with, less families. Even if you double the number of units, a lot of times you're still losing kids. So, and now with the impact you've had from Grand Canyon, that's, pretty much even more the case here than it was, say, 5 or 10 years ago. So in the terms of the actual projections, we still do, figure in, some number of new housing units. That's what's highlighted in blue, at least the left blue box, about 300 units over the next 10 years, about 300 households. That just means it's occupied housing unit. And the real core of the analysis takes the distribution of households by those age groups that I showed on the census table. Again, I can't show all that here, but we use those characteristics to turn households into estimates and projections of school-age population. A school-age population is all persons living in the district ages 5 to 13, which corresponds to K-8, whether they go to your school or any school at all. That's just how many kids live in the district. And where it's highlighted in blue, those are census numbers, and the numbers in between are my annual estimates that I do as part of the study. But when you're looking at blue, you're looking at the best data that we have available. And so if you go back to the year 2000, the school-age population was 14,825, and there was 14,313 kids enrolled in the district, 96.5%. That's totally normal. We used to say 3 to 5 went to private and parochial, and that's the way it was. And that was when the world was rational for me, when everything added up. So, and then you leap forward to 2010, and the enrollment's only fallen by 500. School-age population, as I pointed out, is exactly the same. So we knew the percentage, they fell as a percent, but the number stayed almost exactly the same. Unfortunately, by then, 2,000 of those kids came from outside of the district. So from in the district, you were serving 11,878, which means you're serving, I call it a service rate, of 80.2% of the population. We're all following? Now, I also look at this concept, the EP ratio, the pure just enrollment to population. Well, you count those 2,000 because we are all working in a competitive environment. And the better you can recover from outside, the more you can lose from inside. And so I like to look at the gap between those two numbers and see, are you able to boost that number by being able to attract? So the poster child for this, by the way, is the Madison School District, which has an enrollment to population ratio of 100%, and they serve 51%. Their service rate is 51% of their kids. And that's because they have such an affluent area between 7th Avenue and 7th Street. All those kids go to private school, wouldn't matter what Madison offered, they're not going to get them. So it's not all you. You can't always take it personally. But unfortunately, what's happened, over the last, 10 or 12 years then is the school-age population, has actually begun to contract. The 2020 census indicated 14.4, but think about that stability. Down 400 in 10 years. I mean, that's hardly enough to even talk about, in terms of real numbers. But your enrollment had dropped to 10.5. And about 2,000 of those, again, are from outside the district. So now our service rate is down to 59.3%. Now, notice the year before COVID impact, it was at 66% and really hadn't gone down, hadn't fallen. So we have to separate the steady decline from that one-time impact in looking at these trend lines. So the fact that it has a step in it, you just have to take that into account. But all things considered, this variation and the fact that then there are so many students living in this, or school-age persons living in the district who don't attend your schools, and then some that come in, and it creates this variability that goes beyond standard demographics. It's all about choice. It's not really about the age of the population or anything like that. It's all about choice. And so we look at that, and so these bars show the blue bars are the school-age population, the red is the in-district enrollment, and the green line is that ratio, that service rate that we're talking about. And so, it did fall steadily from 2014 through 2020 being a rather large decline compared to what it had been prior to that. But then you notice the last few years, again, Quit opening charter schools, service rate stabilizes. So I've got two worlds I'm looking at in terms of how do I go forward? Are we gonna, are they gonna continue to evolve? Are private schools gonna come on board? Are we gonna continue to see that decline in the service rate? Or is it gonna stabilize? And so in order to address that, I show you what that difference that would be. Since I don't know which one it's going to be, for sure. So what we do is we do it three ways. The service rate would be trending. The trend column means if it continues to go down at the rate it has over the last 10 years, or actually since 2014, then that would be the trend in the service rate. Stable is stable. What if it stays like it is? And literally, the optimistic is just the midpoint in between the two, because I think that's what you're most likely to hit. And that's what I use then in the projections going forward, is what I call the optimistic scenario. And the optimistic scenario, unfortunately, still has you losing about another 2,400 students or so over the next 10 years. However, the stable, which we've been the last 2 or 3 years, you'd only be losing 1,300. That's how important that assumption is. And the thing is that I won't say it's easy, but it's the one thing you all can kind of influence. You can't influence how many kids live in your district, but you maybe can influence how many you have the opportunity to serve. And so continuing to build a better mousetrap and make sure everybody knows about the mousetrap is a very, very important part of stabilizing your enrollment. I sure don't want to see you lose another 3,400, that's for sure, which is where we were heading before. I think that would be, obviously pretty devastating to the district. Anyways, we'll go through here. I know you got a long night. So the projections are done by individual grade. I'm just showing them grouped by grade cohort. And so it would include losses of, 200 to 250 approximately students per year over the next 10 years. So total enrollment, I guess is in-district enrollment, drops from 9,937 to 7,500. I guess that's total enrollment, sorry. And then moving on to the sub-district analysis, one of the things we look at is where kids live versus where they go to school, because I'm always projecting enrollment based on where, on demographics, which is based on where kids live. And that's not where they all go to school. So we need to understand that relationship. And so this is a difficult table a little bit, but it's one worth learning. So if you read it across, Barcelona Elementary has 722 students from their own attendance area, plus 4 from Peck, plus 16 from Catalina, et cetera, plus 86 from outside the district, so that they have in attendance 850 students. Follow? You read that first column down, that's how many kids live in their attendance area, which actually turns out to be 938. So they have a net loss, out of their district, out of their attendance area of 88 students. And so we have to, incorporate these net losses, not only just in totals, but by grade level and stuff. It's very fun, in trying to track all of this movement around through the district. And actually, a lot of the differences aren't very big. And then, of course, when you get down to the Alhambra traditional, they have no attendance area. There is no resident population. So everybody there is on open enrollment. And so, overall, about 84% of the students attend their designated school. That's actually pretty high. There's a lot of districts that are running in the 60s. They have so much movement where people have the ability, they move. It just seems to be the way of it. Then the bottom line where there's green squares, that shows you the percentage of the students living in that attendance area who chose their school. So again, going to Barcelona, 77%, 722 divided by 938 chose their school, chose that school. Now that can be an indicator of things that are good and bad, but it can also just be you've got a program. Or, so you don't want to read too much into those raw numbers, but it is something to look at over time to see how those change. So we use that information when we take the projections. I'm going to go over this one really fast, but this is basically projected, actual and projected enrollment based on the attendance areas. And so you'll see, and one of the reasons I want to stop here is the last line in this would be out of district. So this is by where kids come from. This is by physically where they live. And so you can see that out of district number was almost 2,200 back in 1920 before the recession. It's down to 1,500 this year. So in our projections, we've actually continued that decline. We're assuming that the amount from out of the district is going to shrink. And again, that's an assumption that doesn't actually have to come to pass. We do know that by and large, the school-age population in the areas around you is shrinking too. So there's less to get. So the rationale is it probably will decline, but it's not written in stone. And then the last table that is, and again, we don't want to get into numbers too much tonight, I'm sure, but this just shows the actual then projections by school. And basically, because we're in this situation we're in, every area or every school is projected to decline. It's just a matter of how much. And that's a function of the demographics in those areas. But you'll see, oh, thank you. But you'll see about 1,111 lost in the first 5 years, 1,281 in the second 5 years. Now, if we held that capture or the service rate at where it is now, then in 10 years, we'd be looking at that column that you're seeing in 27, 28. You understand what I'm saying? Is that it's not a matter of where you are, it's when it is. And so, you know, if we only lose, 11 or 1,200 kids over the next 10 years, then we'll look more like the 27, 28 levels on this chart. So, and we can go into more detail with people and more, when we have more time and look at enrollment by grade, by school, and all of those things if we need to. And that's what we did last time when we did the attendance area planning and so forth. The district is experiencing a shift in the age structure of the population, but much less than you would think by looking at the enrollment numbers. It's still a family's population. There's still a solid group of kids out there to be served. The 1,100 student decline in 2021 by COVID was unprecedented. What was a little different here is that in most districts like this, you got a little bit of a bounce the following year. And again, you got a 500 student loss the following year. So that was a little bit more intense than we saw in some of the areas. But we saw a lot of areas where, like I'm saying here, people found alternatives. People are very creative, and the systems got so much better to do it online that I think it really did have an impact. As Don was saying, the construction activity is limited. And like I was saying, most of the ones that are built, they aren't affordable to or are targeted to families anyway. So unfortunately, it looks like the district is probably going to continue to experience declines. However, the amount is really on the wind. I mean, it could be as much as little as 0. I mean, with the number of kids you're not serving, if you just picked up 10% of what you're losing, it could be a 0. But I'm saying, best case is probably around 1,200 loss next 10 years, and kind of the most likely more like maybe 2,000. So that's all I have for tonight. I know it's a little long, but we'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions from the board members or comments?
Hi, just real quick, the second point on your conclusion slide, you mentioned that compared to other districts, there was a small bump after COVID. Those comparisons, are you talking about other districts around us or just in general?
Actually, very much around you and west, because what we saw was that in most affluent areas, like Chandler and Gilbert, both lost over 2,000 students and got none back.
Right.
Because people just had the money and the means. But if you go out we work for Tolleson Elementary, and you go out that way, and by and large, they got some back.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You bet.
I would just thank you for all the hard work. I mean, I would go crazy looking at all those numbers. So thank you for putting into some sort of a presentation that I might have understood a little bit. And hopefully I will look at it and understand it more clearly later.
And if you don't.
Thanks for
give
bringing
a
us
call.
bad news, I guess is what I have to say, but I do appreciate that you keep coming back and keeping us informed. And we just have to go out there and find some places to build houses for families.
Yeah, and keep selling your programs and your schools, you know.
Well, we are working on that. We have
Yeah.
some new ideas, so
Yeah.
that is
Unfortunately,
definitely.
everybody's in the boat.
Yeah,
Everybody's doing it.
everybody's doing the same thing. You're right.
All right, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate all the hard work that you've put into this.
Thank you very much for your attention and your business.
Thank you.
Do you have any kids you can bring to our schools?
Excuse me?
We can make you a deal.
I did, sorry, I didn't catch it.
Do you have any employees that want to bring their kids to our school?
Oh, well, you know, I don't know. One of the things that districts are doing is looking at creating teacher housing. And so that's one of the things to keep in the back of your mind if you've got an extra piece of ground laying around, and that's a good marketing tool to get those teachers in here.
We have two.
Yes, we do.
We have two parcels, and we're going for an election, this general election in November, to ask our constituents if we can get either sell, lease, or exchange that land. So,
But there also needs to be legislative changes. Rural districts can provide that housing. Urban districts cannot.
Yeah, and that's why I brought it up. There is it's like a section, you know, whatever, 208 or whatever it is, but there is a section that you can use to build housing specifically for teachers.
thank you so much. Round of applause for them, please. We're moving to E, public comment. E1, public comment. There is no public comment tonight. Moving to F, consent agenda. F1, approval of consent agenda items. I call for a motion that the governing board approve consent agenda items F2 through F23.
I move that the governing board approve the consent agenda items F1 through F23.
Thank you, Mr. Narvaez. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Oropesa. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes. I'd like to introduce Ms. Perry, which is right here, so we don't have to just introduce her anymore. She has a nameplate. It's official.
My steps. President Conchas, governing board members, and Dr. Maez, with the approval of the consent agenda, I would like to introduce our new Director of Business Services, Mr. Daniel Coffinger. And Mr. Coffinger has served a variety of roles and began as a teacher, an algebra teacher in a public school district, and also has recently served in a similar role as executive director in a Phoenix area school district as well. So he's also brought his family. We'd love to hear from Mr. Daniel Coffinger. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, President Conchas, governing board members, and Superintendent Dr. Maez. I didn't know I was going to get such a good introduction, so I apologize for any redundancy. I'm honored for this opportunity to be a member of the administrative team here at Alhambra. I'm a third-generation native of Arizona, and I come from a long line of educators, all in neighboring districts. Upon graduating from Arizona State, I began my professional career as an 8th grade math teacher. As a teacher, I learned just as much as I taught. My biggest takeaways were that all students can learn and that relationships are the bridge to learning. After 9 years, I returned to Arizona State to earn a degree in accounting. I learned a lot in my first year as an accountant too, but mostly I learned that I belong in public schools. I returned to the educational world as an executive director of business services in a small unified school district. I served this role for 18 months and learned a lot. I found that business services allowed me to have my cake and eat it too. I could put my accounting skills to use and still impact kids. I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to work with Mr. Huseman. With his experience and reputation, I know Alhambra has experienced success, and I am so fortunate to learn from him. Arizona is either 48th or 49th in the country in terms of public funding education, and funding public education, excuse me. This unfortunate reality only intensifies the importance of every dollar of district spending. I will work hard to ensure that we do our best to maximize the value returned to our students and staff. Tonight, I'm supported by my family, my incredible wife, Jenna, my 2 daughters, Cora and Chloe, and my son, Calvin, isn't here, and you were all thankful for that. Thank you all for this opportunity. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Welcome to the Alhambra family. We look forward to clean audits.
I'm impressed that you were an algebra teacher. I think that bodes well.
We'll move to G1, Business Services, 2023-2024, Proposed Annual Budget. I call for Mr. Huseman and Ms. Bilyeu.
Good evening, President Conches, members of the board, Superintendent Mayes. I don't have formal comments about the proposed budget, but I'm happy to answer any questions. We are statutorily required to propose our budget and then give 2 weeks before we adopt our budget. So we'll be adopting our budget at the meeting on the 22nd. So this proposal meets those statutory requirements. Does anyone have any questions regarding our proposed budget at this time?
Open to questions.
You've already answered all my questions, but I'm going to ask them again because I had the opportunity to ask you that, but lots of people that are out there listening might not have been able to ask questions. And my comments come from the section of that was the board meeting, no, what was it called? Yeah, the hearing notification summary. And again, you've answered these, but I'm going to ask them again. I saw that the average salary of teachers went up, and I know that that's because we gave raises, but I also was wondering if it was reflecting the fact that we have teachers that are staying with us, and that seniority ups the average salary as well.
I think Ms. Diocampo knows that we hired my replacement today, and she wants to see if she can stump me here in front of everyone.
I asked you the questions up front.
That is true. You did give me the questions before. Mainly, we're giving a salary increase to teachers. We also, as you know, in the current school year that we're ending, we had the average, or not the average, the beginning salary for teachers at $50,000. This caused compression in our salary schedule. In the first 10 years of a teacher's salary experience, they only had 5 years of, or $500 of increase. So in order to reinstitute those steps, that all of the teachers got as they moved down on the salary schedule, it increased those beginning salaries for those teachers in their first, I would say, 1 to 8 years or so. So that is the reason why we have a larger than average increase to teacher salaries this year. We're reporting an estimated 4% increase in teacher salaries.
Thank you, and after you answered that, I remembered that we had talked about that, and it had come to the board for approval. So I appreciate that you were forward-thinking, because I've been stuck in that place where the people coming in are getting more than you that's been there. So thank you for doing that. I also noticed, and this was under the regular education, an increase in instructional spending, but the one that I was interested in was that there was a 0.4% in staff increases and a 15.5% increase in administrative.
Good question. So sometimes when we have larger fluctuations in percentage increases when you're looking at the maintenance and operation budget, it's due to the fact that those budgets were smaller and they had an increase, and so the percentage looks larger than the dollar amount would amount to. Most of the reason for that change in administration is due to the fact that we had phased retirees that were in contract and not budgeted for, and now they're coming back as direct employees to the district.
Thank you. And it's not that I don't, administrators, we do need more administrators. We need to increase their pay too. It was just such an off reflection there. And then I noticed that the operation and maintenance budget was down 6.5%.
Yes, so that is due to a coding change in our property casualty liability insurance that was previously coded to function 2600. We're really getting to the weeds here tonight. I'm sure you're at the edge of your seat. I know you can't hear enough back here. And that was changed to function 2500. So you'll see an uptick in the central services 2500 and a slight downtick in 2600. But know that actually salaries and benefits in that section in 2600 are going up. And we are maintaining and increasing supplies to schools and departments in that area as well.
And they are all going to use those supply budgets, right?
Yes, that's our expectation, exactly.
Then I'm going to the special education budget, where we had a 2.2% increase in students, but an 8.3% decline in instructional staff spending.
This is mainly due to a shift in which fund we paid for special education teachers out of. We made a move of resource teachers into our IDEA federal grant budget, and therefore you saw a decline there. It doesn't decline the services, the number of teachers that we have, but it's a move. We're only reporting a maintenance operation in what you're looking at.
I was going to ask about adjacent ways, but you already explained that well enough for me. The federal projects, I know that's tied to all sorts of different things. ESSER funds, census counts, all that.
Mainly ESSER funds. So the district had $100 million in ESSER funding. All told, we've been spending that money, so ESSER 1 and 2 are over now at the end of this fiscal year. All we have left is ESSER 3, so we're budgeting less federal funding because we have less to spend of ESSER money.
And we are spending it wisely, I know. So then my last question was about staffing, because in the staffing ratios, it says we have 1 teacher per 16.2 children. I have not seen a classroom in our district that has 16 children in it, except in summer school. So my question was, who all's included in that calculation of teachers so that it comes out at 1 teacher for 16 kids?
Right, so this is certified staff. So certified teachers, those in Object 6112 and 6115, so it's also going to include other certified.
So why don't you tell me what those codes are? Who is in?
So there's going to be coaches, instructional coaches, there are going to be other certified staff versus just classroom teachers.
And so when I look at 1 teacher per 16 students, it's not realistic because there's lots of other certified staff that are included in that calculation who aren't actually in a classroom.
Correct. Those are not going to be our student-teacher ratios in homeroom classes.
Right. And then in special education, I still have another one that I need to voice an opinion on. We have 1 teacher for 13.3 of our special needs students. That is an extremely high ratio for students that need a lot of one-on-one attention. And I don't really need an answer, that's just my opinion.
Right. I'm sure we'll have lower ratios than that. I did mention in the email back to
You
that
did.
Let's get, our ESS department can provide actual numbers once school starts next year and see what those class sizes are for our special education self-contained programs.
My experiences in the last few years is the special education population is not declining. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Can you please talk a little bit about the public transportation budget? And of course, we're kind of comparing apples and oranges compared to our smaller budget, but it's that 23.7% increase. Can you talk about that?
And you're talking about the transportation budget?
It says pupil transportation. So that could
Right. So we made the move last school year to bring our bus drivers to 12-month and also our bus assistants. So that wasn't really budgeted for. Last school year, we made the decision after the year had started. So the uptick in that budget is to reflect the fact that our drivers and assistants are 12-month now in order to hopefully recruit and retain more staff in that area. We have a real driver shortage and assistant shortage.
Thank you. That's great that and then my other, so I'm really big on healthcare and benefits, and I understand from my personal opinion is that our employees pay too much for their healthcare. And so can you talk a little bit about what benefits look like here as compared to last year?
Well, I can say that just overall, our employees still have a free option. So we do offer employee-only health coverage for free. It's high deductible coverage in 2 levels that they can get for employee-only coverage that doesn't cost them anything. And actually, we give money back to them in their health savings account, $900 if they choose on an annual basis, if they choose the narrow network, and $300, I believe it is, if they choose the wider network for United Healthcare. So I'm glad that we still have a free option for our employees for health insurance, because that isn't the case everywhere. We did see an uptick in healthcare costs this year again. That has been a trend line that's trending in about 6% on an annual basis. It's much higher than inflation. And so it's been difficult for the district to control costs in that area. We have a greater amount budgeted in benefits than we have in the past. And that's actually an area that we've budgeted for carry forward funds, because there's no place in the budget to put your carry forward funds. We have to put it into a particular area, and it is in the benefit area of the budget is where those carry forward funds are. I don't know if I answered your question, but.
You gave me a lot more information, but you talked about the employee only. I have heard anecdotes and stories from teachers who their children are not on their healthcare plan because they can't afford it. And so there are, everyone here in this district matters, but like we literally have children who are children of our staff they're not able to afford coverage. So that, I guess that's it's a little bit of advocacy in terms of my role as the board president, and not necessarily something like, how much did we allocate in this in particular budget. It's really just amplifying that voice and that story. And so I would like to see in the future if we can look at those pricings for the additional family members, because I don't think that it's right ethically that we have uninsured children of our staff because it's unaffordable. So that's really where I'm at right now.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, the advocacy and your perspective on that. And we'll certainly take that to our insurance group that meets and take that under advisement and see what we can do in that area.
And then can you talk a little bit about our bond debt, and are we, and I'm assuming this is just for the public, are we on track in terms of our bond debt? Is everything okay there?
Everything is okay. We have budgeted just over $3 million for principal and interest. We have 3 phases of the bond that we're currently paying back. It was a $45 million bond that was passed in 2017. There was phase 1, it was $15 million. Phase 2 was $15 million. Phase 3 is $15 million. So we're consecutively paying those amounts back. And it is about $3 million next year to the residents that they'll have to come up with. It's about 80 cents or so on the tax rate that will be charged to them for the principal and interest on our bond. But yes, we are on track on paying for that and in spending the money. We're coming to a conclusion of phase 3 with the gym that was just opened at Valencia and Gap, but also with the 3 schools, Westwood, Granada West, and Sevilla East, that are getting some of those bond dollars. Those were the only schools that didn't get those before. So we are coming to a conclusion. I would expect by the end of fiscal year 24, our bond dollars will be totally spent.
Thank you. And then my last question is about our override. So just for information for me to know, when does our override expire, and when will if and when that is extended or not extended, when will that impact our budget?
So we lasted the maintenance and operation override is 15% override based on your revenue control limit. We last passed that in 2020. So we've been having the tradition for that one. It does last for 7 years. It's 5 years of full funding. In year 6, it's cut by 1/3. In year 7, it's cut by another 1/3, and then year 8, it's totally gone if it's not repassed by then. So we have been having the tradition of going out after year 4. So I would advise that we go out in November of 2024 to ask the voters. That will come up for the board to authorize an election there for the override. But ask the voters. That way we're going out a year early. If they authorize it, it's good for another 5 years of full funding. As far as the capital override, That is up to 10% of our revenue control limit with a maximum $5 million. So we have been collecting $5 million in capital override. That was renewed also in 2020. That is good for 7 years of full funding, unlike the M&O override. So we will not need, if we go out a year early, that will be 2026, November of 2026.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Huseman.
You're welcome.
We thanked you. Thank your team. I know you didn't do that all by yourself.
We have a great team in business services.
Thank your
It's a
team
pleasure
for all
working
the
with them.
hard work.
Thank you. Will do.
I call for a motion that the governing board approve the proposed 2023-2024 annual budget as presented, which will allow the district to publish the summary, as required by law, to allow final adoption of the annual budget at the next scheduled board meeting.
I move that we approve the proposed 2023-2024 annual budget as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Oropesa. Thank you, Ms. De Ocampo. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving to G2, Project Momentum, Year 2 Revision. Ms. Billiou and Mr. Ruiz.
President Conchas, governing board members, Dr. Myers, Alhambra Community, good evening. We weren't necessarily prepared to share any remarks on this, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. This is just the second year of our Project Momentum grant that was awarded through the governor's office and has largely supported the work of our professional learning community efforts in Alhambra, to include the stipends for professional learning community leads at each site, representing grade levels and subjects, along with paying for mentors that are assigned to our school leaders, and then to also include some additional opportunity for teachers to have time off contract to plan collaboratively with their team members. So this is just a year 2 revision that reflects the second $1.5 million that was awarded to Alhambra, and we're very excited to continue the work.
Anything else? Is that it? Yes. Okay. So I call for a motion that the governing board accept the revisions to the Project Momentum budget.
I move that we accept the changes to the Project Momentum budget.
Thank you, Ms. De Ocampo. Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Mr. Navarez. Any discussion? Project Momentum, we like it. And all those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. All right, moving to H, Human Resources. H1, Performance Pay Plan Adoption for the 2023-2024 school year. I call for a motion that the governing board approve the adoption of the Alhambra Performance Pay Plan.
I move that we adopt the Alhambra District Performance Pay Plan.
Thank you, Ms. De Ocampo. Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Mr. Navarez. Discussion?
This is a lot of work for the committee that has to come up with all of this. We've been doing it for a number of years, but it doesn't get any easier. And I am confident that you had good representation from all of our employees on the committee. I keep thinking this is and it's not. It's not. I think you covered a lot of ground in this, similar to what we've done in other years. I did have a question. Well, that. Oh, thank you. They gave me. I have a rental computer here, so I can drive it. Will you drive? Will you drive for me? Will you be my Waymo driver? I liked some changes that you made. You took out the percentage that was, you changed the percentage, one of the percentages to reflect attendance of the students. I think that's a more measurable option than what we had before. And as we all know, our funding comes from having students in the classroom, so thank you for making that adjustment. I think that was all I had to say. Let me keep looking through here for a second. I should have written my notes down. Okay. Oh, and you had an appeals process process built in. So thank you to your committee for all the work they did on that, and I appreciate it. Oh, you know, one other thing, the menu of options for performance pay, I couldn't open it. So, so if someone could send that to me, just so I had some idea of what those options were, I would appreciate it. Thank you. It's in blue, but it doesn't open.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes. Moving to H2, I call for a motion that the governing board approve the revised Clerk 3 accounting job description.
I move that the governing board approve the revised Clerk 3 accounting job description as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Navarez. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Oropesa. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving to I1, Governing Board Meeting Change. I call for a motion that the Governing Board approve the recommendation to move our July 13th, 2023 board meeting to July 27th, 2023.
I move that we move the governing board meeting from July 13th, 2023 to July 27th, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Oropesa. Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Mr. Navarez. Discussion?
Yes, I planned my whole trip around being here on July 13th. And now you've got the meeting on July 27th, and I will be in Asia, so don't expect me to come. And I will be in a place where there is no internet, so do not expect me to be at that meeting. Saying that, I'm in favor.
We'll print a picture of you.
Thank you, Ms. De Ocampo. We apologize for this, but myself, another board member, and Dana will be at a conference.
I will also be out, so you would by yourself.
So we will not have quorum.
All right. Well, I'll think of you as I'm sitting on the beach. Or in the jungle, one or the other.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving to J, comments and communications. J1, comments from governing board members.
Just a quick comment. I did see, there's probably several projects, campus projects underway. ATS is looking great. They're tearing out the asphalt there right after school ended. And I saw they were just starting to pave, so very good there. And we're looking forward to a driveway that doesn't throw rocks when you drive through it. So it's nice and clean. Very good for that.
I had the opportunity, as many of you did as well, to be invited to attend some of our promotion ceremonies. They were so much fun. It's so exciting to see what our staff and our administrators put together, and families too, to help celebrate that a momentous event of moving up from 8th grade to high school. The kids were so excited, and the families were even more excited. It was just impressive to see how those programs went like that. Everything was just scheduled. The kids were rehearsed. It just went so smoothly, and thank you all for doing that. It was very meaningful to the families and to the students, of course. Then on the other side, I had the opportunity to go see the beginning of summer school. Another well-organized, not that I wouldn't expect anything less than that, but summer school, wow, the kids are there, they're attending, the staff were ready to go. And today I actually saw the kids with perfect attendance at wherever I was, Granada East, I think. They were having a special event where they were getting to dunk each other in water because they'd had perfect attendance. I did not volunteer to go sit there and do that, but it was very impressive, and the kids were very excited about it. So to all the staff that are putting together summer school, I know that's over and above. I appreciate that you're doing it. Thank you. Our kids will definitely benefit from it.
I don't have any prepared comments, but there's a sense of energy in the room on this side over here that I really love. It's excitement, and it's really good to see all of your beautiful faces. And for those of you that are not in the room, it's all of our amazing principals and leadership. And just want to say thank you. Thank you for all you did last school year and closing it out, summer school, and you all. I know you all are already preparing for next year. It's in a few months, right? In August.
It's a few weeks.
Few weeks. So I just want to say thank you for everything that you do. And sometimes I even want to ask, like, oh, do the principals have any questions? Because you all are. Because.
Amy loves the mic.
Yes. But yes, anyways, we appreciate you and we support you, and we're just super glad that you're here. Thank you. All right, no other comments. Moving to J2, Governing Board Direction and/or Agenda Item Requests. I think this has been already covered, but is there any, I'd like to know if there's any update on the Glendale, City of Glendale's land purchase. That's it. I know that Mr. Hughesman sent us an email, just wanting to know if there's any update. Thank you. Moving to J3, comments from superintendent and executive team.
So we will have a few comments, but I see how I can tell our administrators out in the audience are tired, so be brief. It's been a long week, right? Working hard out there. Raul, brief.
But it's a 4-day week. They get tomorrow off.
Summer school is going well. No, I do want to share real quickly. During summer school this week, students have seen about 25,000 books delivered to campuses. And so teachers, students, everybody's very, very eager to get these in the hands of our kiddos. And the cool thing is that only represents about a third of what's to come in our big library revitalization plan. So very excited that summer school, with about 1,300 students we've got throughout the district right now, is going well, and thank you to all the administrators and teachers who are helping to support that in those efforts. So, thank you.
Good evening, President Conchas, governing board members, Dr. I'm on fast. Just want to celebrate our office teams. So our office teams from every school have been coming together all year long, being led by our fabulous Dana Lucero and Edith Mojica and Nikki Wilson, Candy Swift, and Colleen O'Toole. They've been leading them with trainings, meetings, really trying to develop and excel the collaboration, the teamwork, really striving for similar to identical across our district, but to also just to reach that standard of excellence. So very well earned at the end of the year. The district team went out to every office team member and gave them a certificate of accomplishment for something personally that they grew in throughout the year. So, and they're already planning, they're ready for next year, getting those office team collective commitments, diving into a book study. So just some wonderful work going on with our folks. Thank you. All right. President Conchas, governing board members, and Dr. Maez, we're also very excited getting ready for next year as well. A great big shout out to our principals and our hiring team. We are, you may have seen the posting come out today. We are down to 11 certified vacancies for next year. Nice job. Continuously see that decrease. This time last year, 23, so to have 11 as of today, and I know we have some applicants. We've already waiting for those recs to hire coming in. So they're doing a great job getting their, we know it's important to have teachers in classrooms on day one of school, and we will do everything we can to support them.
Thank you, President Conchas, members of the board, and Dr. Maez. Super pleased to share with you that the District ID Badge project that I shared with you in March is now being rolled out district-wide. This was a huge collaborative endeavor, which is why I'm so proud of it, and the team did a beautiful job of presenting the project to the administrative team yesterday, but this wouldn't have happened without collaboration between safety and security, transportation, child nutrition, the business office, federal projects, technology, and our 3 pilot schools, ATS, Madrid, and Sevilla West. Through those collective efforts, we have a very solid plan and another additional layer of safety for our staff and students.
Good evening to our president, the board, and our superintendent. I'm excited that we continue to expand the opportunities for our students in their social emotional growth. two things. One, we have Leader in Me training going across district, and it's good to see folks getting together. In addition to that, we were awarded a grant to add 2 additional counselors to our teams, one at each of the Sevillas. So we're excited to continue to grow the social emotional learning support for our students.
Thank you all. And I just want to thank everyone. It's been a busy week of summer school and learning and digging into the data. And so again, everyone, I appreciate you, Scott. Thanks for getting that budget ready and for answering all the questions. And again, everyone, thank you, and may you get some rest, and the kids will be waiting on Monday, so.
Moving to K, meeting closing. K1, the next governing board meeting will be on June 22nd, 2023. K2, calendar of events. We will be closed on the 19th. We'll be closed on the 4th. District office and school sites will be closed the 3rd through the 6th. And we'll have our back to school celebration on August 4th. So wear your cowboy hats. Future, or wigs this time. Future dates, July 19th and 20th, 2023 will be leadership conference held in Sedona. It'll be Mr. Navarre's first one. So we're excited to welcome him. And K3 is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Oropesa. Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Mr. Navarre. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned.